Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to show you a 1998 psychological comedy drama film called The Truman Show. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Christof, the creator of The Truman Show, informs the documentary that although everything around Truman is fake, his emotions are genuine and his life is still real. Truman Burbank is the unsuspecting star of the show. His wife, Meryl, and best friend, Marlon, support Christof's claims. Without his knowledge, he is one of the most prominent personalities in the world. The crew films his daily life with thousands of cameras that run 24 hours every day. The broadcast is worldwide, thus people from different countries know of him. Truman is a cheerful man. He works as an insurance adjuster and lives in a friendly neighborhood that is completely designed and controlled by the production team. He does not realize that Sea Haven Island, which he considers home, is a huge television studio. This means that Cristof and his team can control everything in it. On a typical sunny day, something falls from the sky. Truman investigates the object and sees that it is a piece of lighting equipment for the show, but he has no idea about it and goes to work. To control the situation, the radio says that it's just an object from a broken aircraft. The production team can also control the news that Truman listens to from his car. Every aspect of his life is in Christof's hands. The whole set of the show indeed looks like a friendly neighborhood. Citizens, or actors, have jobs, have families, and mind their own business. Truman is entirely clueless that everyone around him is just actors. At work, he secretly makes a phone call to Fiji looking for Lauren or Sylvia Garland. He fails to find her. He browses through a magazine page of a woman's face and rips it as it resembles Sylvia's eyes. At that moment, his boss, Lawrence, instructs him to visit Well Park in Harbor Island to close a client deal. Truman respectfully declines, claiming that he has an appointment at the dentist, but his boss insists that he secure the deal. Truman arrives at the ferry terminal. He has second thoughts about continuing to go when he sees a small boat submerged by the shore, which triggers his phobia of traveling by water, so he turns back. That night, Truman meets up with Marlon to have drinks and play mini-golf. Truman reveals that he wants to quit his job and leave the island. He tells his best friend that he has dreams of moving to Fiji, a small country in the South Pacific Ocean. Marlon laughs at him and says that his idea is ridiculous, as Truman's life is peaceful in Sea Haven. To stop Truman from discovering his controlled reality, Cristof fabricates scenarios that dissuade Truman's desire to explore, such as killing off his so-called father in a sea storm to instill phobia, and by constantly printing messages of and broadcasting the dangers of traveling. The rain starts to fall, but just on Truman. As soon as he notices this, the whole sky opens up and it starts raining completely. At home, while soaking wet, Truman introduces his plan to Meryl, that they can travel the world and see new things. She does not think that it is a good idea as their finances are not so stable. Meryl suggests that they should have a baby instead. That would be adventurous enough. The following day, Truman sees what seems to be like a homeless man who looks exactly like his father. As he starts to recognize him, two bystanders take the man away. Truman tries to run after them, but the citizens stop him by getting into his way, making it too late to run to the man. Completely distraught about the situation, Truman comes to his mother, Angela, to talk about what he saw. She dismisses the encounter as a vision stemming from the loss of his father, and he takes comfort in her words. In his basement, Truman opens a box with his keepsakes that have pictures of him and his father, along with other memorable items. Truman unwraps a red sweater inside a plastic bag that belonged to his high school classmate named Lauren. A flashback reveals that she was supposed to be just an extra in the show, but she caught Truman's eyes, which made him fall for her instantly. However, Meryl was the one intended for him. This pushed the show's producers to keep Truman and Lauren apart as much as possible. While Truman danced with Meryl at their prom, he caught a glimpse of Lauren once again and locked her in his sight. The producers brought Lauren out of the set to stop Truman from looking at her. On a study night, Truman saw Lauren on a table across from him and approached her, but she told him that she could not have a conversation with him. Truman and Lauren managed to go to the beach where they had their first kiss. She told him about the truth, and she also revealed her real name, Sylvia. Truman failed to digest what she said. A producer of the show who acted as Sylvia's father picked her up and took her away. He told Truman that she was insane and they will move to Fiji. At that moment, Truman was left confused and heartbroken. After the flashback, Truman opens up a frame of his wife. Behind it is a collage of facial features that he collects to resemble Sylvia's face. The next day, Truman overhears the production walkie-talkies on his car radio, describing his exact location. He becomes paranoid as he feels watched and monitored. Instead of going to his office, he wanders around the island to reflect on what seems to be a controlled environment that he lives in. He observes the traffic, the people around him, and the way they behave. he begins to notice the strange things that are happening around him that he never saw before. Buses and other vehicles stop for him as he crosses the street. Truman realizes that the city somehow revolves around his life. He enters a building and tries to get on an elevator furiously, but sees an open wall with producers instead. Confused, Truman is kicked out of the building. He decides to visit Marlon, who works at a convenience store. Upon hearing from Truman and his observations, he treats him like he's just making things up. Marlon assures him that everything is fine and that no one is following him. At home, Truman, Meryl, and Angela browse through their photo albums of Truman when he was young. They reminisce memories from the past. When it's time for Angela to head home, Meryl assists her while Truman continues to look through the photos. He notices that in their wedding photo, Meryl crossed her fingers when they kissed. The gesture is a sign of lying or insincerity, which makes Truman doubt their marriage and relationship. Because of this, he follows Meryl to work the following day. After she left, he rushes to the fake hospital where she works at. This forces Meryl and the other actors to act like real doctors and stage a simulated surgery. The staff manage to stop him, and he decides to leave a message for his wife that he's going to Fiji. Truman tries several ways to get out of Sea Haven. He goes to a travel agency, but none of the flights are available. Instead, he gets on a bus to get to Chicago, but it breaks down before the journey even starts. Truman's skepticism and hostility grows even more. Desperate to get out of the city, Truman convinces Meryl to come with him and points out all the strange inconsistencies in his life. On their impromptu road trip, traffic blocks their descent. They make it to a bridge, but Truman is too scared of the water. He lets Meryl take the wheel as he accelerates. Implausible emergencies always seem to block their way. He then runs out of the car at a roadblock, but a group of extras knock him to the ground and return him to his home. Meryl and Truman argue. He accuses her of being part of the conspiracy. Truman begins to break down while holding Meryl at knife point. Hoping to bring Truman back to a controllable state of mind, Marlon enters the home to save Meryl. On the same night, Marlon gives a heartfelt speech to Truman, trying to convince him that he's just paranoid about things and his anxiety is unfounded. However, through an earpiece, Cristof is telling Marlon exactly what to say, including, "I would never lie to you, Truman." Moreover, he tells him that he is right about his father and he found him for Truman. Dramatically, Truman's father, Kirk, comes out of the fog to hug him. Tearfully, they continue to have a moment under the guise of having amnesia after the boating accident, while thousands of viewers watch in happiness from all around the world. During a televised interview with Christof, he describes the ways that have kept The Truman Show on air for the past 29 years without Truman's knowledge. He reveals that Truman got selected from several unwanted pregnancies, and the corporation adopted him legally. Everything on the show is for sale, and the actors integrate product advertisements regularly. Sylvia interrupts the interview by telling Christof that he is a manipulative liar. Truman returns to his usual self of being funny and gets back to his regular routines. The only difference is that he starts sleeping in the basement after Meryl left. One night, the control team of the show realizes that he secretly escapes through a makeshift tunnel that he made in his basement. He escapes through cameras. Christof turns off the transmission for the first time in 29 years. The viewers are left in shock after this. Everyone is wondering where Truman went. They organize an island-wide search where all the actors come out, and Christof even turns on the daylight to make it easier. In the meantime, Truman is on a boat in the middle of the ocean despite his phobia. He decides to overcome his fear to achieve total freedom. Christof is angered by this and cooks up a storm to capsize the boat so that Truman would head back to the island. His plan is ineffective as Truman is strong-willed to leave the island for good, so he ends the storm. Truman continues to sail but reaches the wall of the dome instead of the open sea. However, he reaches a staircase which is the exit to descent. Christof has no choice but to introduce himself to Truman as a voice from the sky. He tries to persuade him that the real world is full of lies, sickness, and dangers. But Truman, sure of his choice, takes a bow and claims freedom. Defeated, the production team ends the program and his viewers look for something else to watch.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.